You're listening to the Packernet Podcast Network.
What's going on, U.S. Cellular customers? I've got good news, so don't hit skip, at least not yet. I'm talking about their special customer event, Us Days. What is Us Days? It means exclusive offers just for their customers, just to say thanks, like $1,200 off any phone, plus $300 off any tablet. No, I didn't just misread that. They must really like you. Us Days at U.S. Cellular, exclusive offers just for you, just to say thank you. Right now, U.S. Cellular customers get $1,200 off any phone, plus $300 off any tablet. Terms apply.
Actually, it's the lead play in our offense. Yes, a YN or a tight end to open up somewhere between 6 feet and 9 feet. Get an isolation with the linebacker. You tell the tackle to take the defensive end if he's over him. If he's not, to drive down on the first man to his inside. If the YN has the linebacker taken out, he cuts inside. If the YN has the linebacker in, he comes all the way around. If you look at this play, what we're trying to get is a seal here and a seal here, and try to run this play in the alley.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access Midday Edition. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on Packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Email us, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. You can text us 865-658-5824. Joined alongside Jacob live in Wisconsin. Just here to talk a little Packers. Got a pretty cool little show queued up for you, man. We've got some really cool audio that Wildy and Tausch put together on their show as they interviewed the civilian GOAT, Greg Cosell, and breaking down a little Jordan Love talk, a little Tay Wicks Jayden Reed. You guys know, if you listen to our pod, I talk about Greg Cosell all the time. Quite the fanboy I am of him. He's been breaking down film for over 40 years now. To put that into perspective, I'm 41. So he's been breaking down NFL film longer than I've been alive. So really appreciate the fact that he puts in all the extra time to look at the film. And it's just a really cool way to understand the game at a different level, rather than kind of get caught up in yourself and what you're seeing. Here's what I think. Here's my opinion. Here's my take. I love what Greg says. He has no takes. He's simply showing you, here's what the tape shows. There's no, here's what I think happened. Here's what the tape is showing, which is really cool. So, Jacob, how was your day, bub? You don't have to answer that.
It's all right. My for those of you listening on the pod, my front end of my suspension, my air suspension went out on my Audi. And so that might be the end of that old Audi because they want like $3,000 to $4,000 to fix it. That's with before labor. So, yeah, of course. Yeah. Other than that, great.
That's the way it goes, man. And dude, when the car goes and you got to get another one, there's some sentimental value there. There's also some aggravation. But I'll tell you, one way that you can afford to get those repairs done on your car. So, Jacob, what I thought we would do, we kind of queue up some of this audio again from the Wildy and Tausch show. You guys know I pretty much watch Wildy and Tausch every day, and Wildy's been out this week. It's sometimes when you have a host that steps away, the show gets a little crappier. I'll tell you, Mark Tauscher and Jesse have stepped up big time, and it was just, I don't want to put Wildy down in no way, because the show would not be the same without Jason Wildy, in my opinion. He's someone who's grown on me a lot this past year. Really like what they bring to the table, the dynamic they have. But Wildy and Tausch and Jesse been putting together some really good content this week. So if I was Wildy, I'd kick back a little bit, man. Just count the money and let them do their thing. You know what I'm saying? So, but with that being said, they basically had Greg Cosell on. And like I mentioned about Greg, I'm not going to do another plug there. One of the best at breaking down the tape. They asked him specifically about Jordan Love, Jacob. And this was really exciting, man. When he said what he says here, my jaw hit the floor. Because, again, if this was anyone else, I'd go hot take. This is Greg Cosell, who's watched damn near 300 dropbacks of Jordan Love. When I say watched every aspect of the play. What are the route concepts, the passing concepts? What are the route combinations? What are the wide receiver splits? Where's the protection? Did Jordan change the protection? He is the epitome of tape studier, okay? Not just highlight reel watcher. So let's see what Greg Cosell had to say about Jordan Love on Wildy and Tausch.
Anybody, and you do a great job of illustrating what you see. What did you see from the beginning of the Jordan Love era, which was up and down? What were the biggest reasons we saw him really? I'm going to give a take here. I think he was one of the best quarterbacks the back half of last season. What he was able to do, the throws that he made, the consistency that he played with. What was the difference last year?
I got two answers to that because I actually watched a ton of Jordan Love a couple of weeks ago because that's what I kind of do in the off season. I go back and rewatch a lot of things because during the season I can't watch, let's say 250 dropbacks in a row, because I'm going week to week. In the off season I can do that. But I'm going to start by saying I think Jordan Love is one of the 3 or 4 most gifted quarterbacks in the league in terms of pure physical talent.
Top 3 or 4 of gifted quarterbacks in the league in terms of talent.
But I think there's 2 things that really showed up to me, and there may be more, coaches who really, that work with him know him better than I. But just watching the tape, I thought there were 2 things from a developmental standpoint that stood out. I thought he showed a much better calculated pre-snap understanding, recognizing defenses, understanding how to use his cadence. And I think there was probably no better snapshot of that than the touchdown he threw to Wicks against the Cowboys in the playoff game. I also thought that there's another great example of that, too, just understanding what he was looking at pre-snap. He threw a touchdown. I think it might have been, was it week 18? No, maybe it was against the Vikings late in the season. Was that week 17 or somewhere around there?
Week 17, that would have been, yeah.
Yeah, where he threw a touchdown to Reed, and the Vikings changed their coverage. They had late coverage rotation, and he read it instantaneously, and he hit Reed on the seam versus what became cover 2. But the second point I wanted to make was he just became a better processor and decision maker from the pocket. He saw things more cleanly. He saw things more quickly. Because that's ultimately, what you're trying to do as a quarterback is you're trying to win pre-snap, which is not going to happen all the time. Obviously, there's a defense out there, but you're trying to get as much information as you can pre-snap so that as you're dropping back, because all that happens really fast, as Mark can attest, you're not thinking it through. It just intuitively happens. And he got much better at that.
God, I love it, man. And, he mentioned the play to Reed. That was on New Year's Eve in Minnesota where they ran a cover 2 invert. So it wasn't just cover 2. It was cover 2 invert, meaning the corner bails out and covers half deep, right? And the safety rotates in. So it's a lot more complex look. And he was just patient. If I remember correctly, it was a 3-by-1 set. And he just patient, fade away, allowed Reed. That's the one that I was told you, my nephew, the big Vikings fan, said this isn't fair. They've done it. They've got another one because that's just not a normal throw. Now, I've got the play that he was referring to with Wicks down the seam queued up here from the Dallas matchup, Jacob, before I hit it, because it is a little long-winded, about 4 or 5 minutes of me and Emilio breaking that play down before I hit it. Anything you want to add there as far as what Greg said, man? That's exciting hearing that, isn't it, dude?
Yeah, I mean, like you talked about, Greg Cosell is in that football kind of Mount Rushmore type stuff as far as guys that are analysts that are breaking down the tape. There's certain people where if they say something, you don't even have to fact check it. You can just share it. And that's one of those guys, there's certain analysts, most of them, are more of that like clickbaity type stuff. He's more of like you talked about the analytics, the process, the procedure, all that kind of, he's watched so much tape that it's hard not to get excited when a guy like that is talking about Jordan Love in that high of rare air, talking about top 3, top 4 quarterbacks in the league. I hate saying it because I'm a homer, or it sounds like it's a homer take if I say it and if you say it, but when somebody like that says it, right. He's not necessarily a Packer fan. I don't know what he is, but I'm assuming he's not a diehard Packer fan. But we saw it. I mean, like, people really do sleep on the fact that second half of what we saw Jordan Love, that was elite. That wasn't just good. I mean, it was 17 touchdowns, 1 interception. And that 1 interception, if I remember correctly, it was kind of like it was one of those where it's like, oh man, I see what happened there. It was one of those stupid interceptions. It wasn't even a bad one. I could be wrong, but if you take all that in totality and him going into the fact that he had such a young team doing it. There was no consistency in the front half of that. And like, I really do think that the cards are on the table, and obviously he's going to have to come out next year and perform. But with everything taken into consideration, Jordan Love looks like we have a three-peat as far as being a Hall of Fame caliber, once in a lifetime generational Packer, quarterback. But if you're a Packer, then that's just what we do here. So
right.
It's not fair. It has to suck being a Bears fan. I mean, honestly, to think about the actual pretzel they have to twist themselves into to each year be like, no, this time I know we've never had a 4,000-yard passer. No, we've never had a guy that could ever, wasn't worth the Charmin extra soft he wipes his butt with. But like, to really actually try to put on your hat, your Bears hat every year, and be like, this is the year.
You're talking about the clown makeup, right? That's what we're talking about. So, and when you say Hall of Fame, immediate people go, whoa, slow down.
Caliber, Hall of Fame caliber.
The reality is the last half of the season, the second half of the season, those were better than Aaron Rodgers' MVP numbers. Like that's not, I'm not just blowing smoke there. Like that's why it made it so difficult on Goody with this contract, man. Goody's sitting there going, hey, look, hold up. Now you've only done it for like 8-9 games, right? And Jordan's guys are going, yeah, but he did it better than anyone else in the league during those 8 or 9 games. So I hope it doesn't happen. I think there's a slight chance that the contract carries over into the regular season. If that's the case and he comes out and he balls out week 1, every week, if I'm Mulligetta, I'm going back to Goody going, hey, bub, price just went up again.
Keep looking back at him like.
Right. Yep. Exactly. So, and listen, we don't want to get into leverage talk and contract and all that, but M. Smitty says, love that comment about Love's ability to process the field was markedly improved from beginning to end of season. No doubt about it. And that's going to be the play we're going to show here. Jimmy Hoffa in the chat, or Jimmy Haffa, I should say, says this is our time. I believe it's the start of a dynasty. If you've got the quarterback, that's always a possibility, right? So that's going to be the big hinge here this year is Jordan the guy. So this play that he talked about,
real quick, can I just add something to that? I remember specifically listening to one of Ryan's podcasts, like, man, maybe 2.5 years ago now, maybe a little less, something around there, where he actually revisited the Jordan Love talk, because a lot of people were up and down with Jordan Love. They didn't quite know where he projected in that draft. But when people were high on him, they weren't just a little bit high. There was guys that were, I don't want to say it was Greg Cosell, but I think it might have been actually a clip from Greg Cosell and a couple other highly touted college scouts that were like, Jordan Love is the closest thing there is to Pat Mahomes. And he's the only type of quarterback in this certain draft. They were talking about that. And he went and played all these actual clips from different comments and stuff. And the biggest knock on him was that, it was the mechanics, the consistency. He only had one really flashy year, and then the next year, remember, he lost like all his wide receivers. He lost most of his offensive line. He lost his offensive coordinator. Yep. And they basically said he decided, I'm going to come back and try to help the team. And he basically that whole next year was just throwing prayer balls to kind of save games and sort of stuff. So he showed that he was more of a team guy completely. And that's exactly what Smitty just said right here, is that the team is fully behind Love. And I think that is nothing to shy away from, because that's a big aspect. It's one of those things I always talk about. It's not a measurable intangible, which is crazy. So,
right. And the 4 things that I think are most important when evaluating a quarterback is pre-snap read, post-snap read, accuracy, and quick release. All right. And everything you said about Pat Mahomes and them comparing to Pat Mahomes, the positive were, hey, he's the closest thing we see to Patrick Mahomes in this draft. The negatives are he's the closest thing we see to Patrick Mahomes in this draft, because the mechanics are all too hell, right? But you could see in the second half of the season, him throwing off platform, he was getting the ball where it needed to be. It's just wild. So as far as pre and post snap read, this clip is a good example of that. I wish it was someone else talking on this video. I cannot stand the sound of my freaking voice. I may mute it, and Jacob, you give me a thumbs up when it's over. But this is the best we could do at kind of breaking down exactly what happened in that Dallas tape. Going to be a little bit fuzzy, going to look a little bit like the Zapruder film because it was screen recorded. But here was us breaking down that play to Tay Wicks, the one that Greg Cosell specifically mentioned with Jordan changing the play. But here we go. 5. There was your explosive. And then let's just go ahead and fast forward to this 3rd and 7 play. No big deal. 3rd and 7. Let's just pick up the first down, right? Nah. Let's go through here and let's see what they're actually doing. I'm going to try to walk you guys through the best way I know how I think Jordan Love was reading this, okay? We come out in 11 gun empty, strong right, okay? There's your T. It's Patrick Taylor. I cannot get these sizes where I'm happy with them, bro. There's your T. That's Patrick Taylor, okay? So your T left, right? There's your strong right. So you're going gun empty, 11 gun empty, strong right, T weak is essentially the call. He's going to do a hard count. And watch what happens, Emilio. See the hard count? Oh, what are we doing here, boys? What do we catch you guys doing here? You got your hands in the cookie jar, I see. So Jordan sees this, right? He sees this and he thinks, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Well, we've only got 5 protecting with a chip, and that chip is not responsible for one whole guy. He's just going to chip and run a little angle out here, right? So watch what Jordan does being the savvy veteran. The other thing he notices too, look right here. Let's count them off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Every player that's on the field is in camera view right now. What the hell is this safety doing playing the numbers, Emilio? And where is the other safety? And if they're firing 2 backers and the safety's that far away from middle field, what does that tell you? 0-man coverage. So here we go. Watch him. He sees it. Watch him. Okay. Dallas tips their hand, showing a double mug blitz. It's a fire 6 plus the safety. Look at the safety. Jordan sees it. He's going, what is all this out here? Okay. Single safety wide equals 0-man coverage, or what I refer to as goose, or what I refer to as if you have the bow. I about said something bad. If you have the Huevos to hang out there, you can cash in for 6 right here. Watch Jordan looking like a freaking 8-year vet. Watch this. At the line, he's going to walk up, check, let's go. Y safe, Z quick, stack climb, X go, slot skinny, T leak. I think the main thing he was accomplishing here when he walks to the line, watch him point to the Y. He calls it out. He looks at Tucker and goes, tuck. I need you to stay safe, right? So we're going Y safe. What does that mean? You're staying in and blocking now. They're bringing 6. They already declared. They tipped their hand. They screwed the pooch, right? So we're going to tell Tucker, stay in and block, bro. Stay in and block and help. 27 is going to chip and be the safety valve on an angle underneath, all right? So let's walk through what the play is. The stack climb, we're going to motion over, right? We're going to go Z quick to stack, okay? And that Z quick stack climb, he's going to quick over, and he's going to run a climb route, right? Which is kind of like a mix between a crosser and a post, if you will. It's called get open. It's what Coach Hahn said. I laughed when he said that too. And then we're going to do a X go. Romeo's just going to stretch it deep, right? And look at the guys over here. This is what tells you it's man. See how they're kind of stacked up, right? One of them's man coverage here, and the other one's man coverage here. So Romeo's going to run an X go. He's going to run an angle, okay, after he chips. We're going to go slot skinny. So it's going to be a skinny post. He's going to wait to the last possible second. As a matter of fact, right when he gets around the goal line, and he's going to skinny it off inside. It's going to be a post. It's not going to be that sharp. It's going to be a post route. And you got the T leak angle. Jordan sees every bit of this. Look at this. Check it. Change the protection while you're staying in. Give it to me. Watch for 3 seconds on the clock. Jayden, come on, buddy. Give me that quick. Let's go. Bang. Look at the set. Look at the switch release. Drop him back. He knows exactly where he's going with the football. Fade away, jumper, like another Jordan we knew. Look at Jerry. He's like, boys, I don't know what the hell we got to do, but Steven, you better figure this out. And this guy's like, Jerry, I got a pen. What do you need me to write down? He's like, I don't know what to tell you to write down, boys. He's lost. Look at him. He's like, this sucks. Look at this route, too. Look at Tay. You ready for it? Ooh. I could watch this all day long, bro. Oh, my God. I don't mean to be so unprofessional, but this is so much fun. Watch Tay, dude. That looks like Tay Adams, bro. That's a sucky corner, right? former Defensive Player of the Year, Stephon Gilmore. Ate his lunch. And look, and then he got the foot speed just to beat him. Not the cleanest catch.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, what a play call.
And it was beautiful because Jordan Love got him to bite at 9 seconds on the play clock, then has, the authority and knows the offense like the back of his hand to call out the exact play he wanted, middle field open, and just absolutely ate it up.
It's unbelievable, man. Look at this guy right here. He is done. He is uninvested now. Look at him leaning back like, I just want to get here. Yeah,
I'm going to start the car, man.
Y'all want to go beat traffic? Now, here's the other part of this play. Look at the pressure in Jordan's face. Look at his body lean, bro. And watch him get this by this defender. Let me take it back. If someone showed you this still shot right here, Emilio, you'd think this ball's getting batted down, right?
Yeah.
Watch this ball.
What's going on, U.S. Cellular customers? I've got good news, so don't hit skip, at least not yet. I'm talking about their special customer event, Us Days. What is Us Days? It means exclusive offers just for their customers, just to say thanks, like $1,200 off any phone, plus $300 off any tablet. No, I didn't just misread that. They must really like you. Us Days at U.S. Cellular, exclusive offers just for you, just to say thank you. Right now, U.S. Cellular customers get $1,200 off any phone, plus $300 off any tablet. Terms apply.
Have you ever experienced turbulence on a flight and wondered why?
And you can see all the terrain around you. You've got no issue with visibility or anything?
No, everything's peachy.
Maybe you've sat on the tarmac for hours wondering why your plane isn't moving.
Well, we're outside here. They're saying the ramp is closed. They won't let us park because of Air Force One.
Listen in on the conversations between pilots and air traffic controllers on the Air Traffic Out of Control podcast.
510, declaring an emergency. There's smoke in the cabin. I need to make a landing right now on 31 left.
We have the most interesting, wild, and funny ATC recordings you will ever hear. Check out Air Traffic Out of Control wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
Jeez. Bro, it's like it defies gravity. Like the angles that he throws the ball on, you couldn't have put it in a better place.
Right. Wasn't over the top, wasn't sidearm.
God. Teams are going to start playing them really conservative, man. I'm just telling you. They're going to stop at the zero looks. All right, so there you go. Obviously, breaking down that play from the Dallas game. That's what Greg Cosell was talking about, how he's seen him start to change the protections, change the play at the line of scrimmage. There was a really cool audio from Tom Brady on with Colin Cowherd the other day talking about everything that the quarterback is asked to do. I know people used to get extremely angry with Jordan Love changing the play at the line of scrimmage. Not Jordan Love, but Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers did that for years, right? And then on the backside, everybody got kind of tired of it. When I seen Jordan do that in that game, Jacob, I was like, oh, my God. He has full command over the offense. I remember us talking in training camp on this pod, Jacob, about is he going to set the protection? Who's going to be setting the protection? Who's going to be doing this? Halfway through the season, you still didn't really know. I want to say it was like the 5th or 6th game in the season we seen him change the protection one game. It was like, okay, now he's getting it. Now he's got command over the offense. So pretty sweet, man. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, just watching his evolution, people think that – I think the biggest knock on him going into the season is people are like, well, he's a 4th year or 5th year, whatever it was, starter. It's like, no, he's not. He's basically a rookie quarterback. I think you can lump him in with guys like C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young in that class where it's like, oh, let's see what they do in year 2. I think this is realistically Jordan's year 2. And that's even more scary when you consider the fact that the first half wasn't great, but there were flashes. We did see certain pockets where we're like, oh, okay, this is why we decided we're okay with letting Aaron walk. But a lot of it, too, was in addition to his mechanics getting better, you saw the off-field presence getting better. You saw the leadership getting better. You saw his interviews. He just decided, it seems like he's more of just growing into the role, growing into being an adult. And also, it just seems that the guy thrives in high tense situations where it's almost like he gets better and he's not afraid of it. And that's kind of been supposedly his personality trait and his MO is that he's even keeled, doesn't let himself get too high, doesn't let himself get too low. learns from stuff. And, most of the time that's a lot of coach speak and just whatever, just throwaway comments to be like, he's a good team player and blah, blah, blah. Where it's like with Jordan Love, I really do think that's actually his persona. And he's talked about it personally. And I don't think it was an intentional dig at Rodgers, but it was kind of an underhanded, backsided dig at Rodgers where he said, I want to work on my, they asked him, somebody asked him like, kind of, what are you working on? He goes, my nonverbal communication. Like I gotta not get too high. I think he even said, I can't get too high, get too low. I don't want guys to see me ever being mad or like annoyed or disappointed. And that was one thing about Rodgers. He wore his emotions very clearly on his expressions.
Yeah.
So,
and as soon as he won a Super Bowl, that's where things it's like, okay, now I'm going to take command. That Super Bowl run, you didn't see it much, but after that Super Bowl run, a couple MVPs under his belt, that's when he really started to. And I personally think you've got to do that. You've got to be able to command their respect as a quarterback. Phil Simms was on a podcast the other day, and he was talking about that very thing, how Bill Parcells jumped down the offensive line's throat one practice and was talking about, you guys need to do better. This is crap, whatever. And then he turned around to Phil and said, Simms, it's your fault because you baby them. You're their friend now. They don't respect you anymore. You're out buying them gifts and this and that. And he said, it pissed him off. But on his way home from practice, he said, I kind of thought he's right. They used to be kind of scared of me. That's what he said. So you've got to have a little bit of that. But Jordan Love's self-awareness is what I refer to as social IQ. His ability to understand, get an accurate depiction in his own mind of how other people see him, how other people respond to him. It's absolutely huge. And he got a little hot-headed a couple times last year. And it was like, I can't remember which game it was. It was in the first half of the season. He was doing the whole motion to someone. It's like that time and one other time is the only time in the year that I've seen him do it. So he did an excellent job of holding it together. Way better than Aaron did those last few years. There's no doubt about that. So the other thing too is like, you're only as good as your receivers, right? You can go out and play lights out quarterback play, but if you don't have someone to catch the ball, if you don't have guys creating separation, getting open, making plays for you, it's not going to make a hill of beans. Greg Cosell was asked by Wildy and Jesse on Wildy and Tausch about the receiver room. And here is what Greg Cosell had to say about the wide receivers.
Greg Cosell, NFL Films, joining us here on Wildy and Tausch. Jesse and Tausch today with Jason Wildy on assignment for the week. I'm glad you brought up the receivers, Greg. I definitely wanted to ask you about those guys because we've had a conversation for about a month now here this offseason about the ensemble cast of Packers wide receivers. It feels like there may not be a true number one, but when you watch the tape, do you see any of these potential receivers emerging as a number one, that they could take the leap here in year 2 or year 3 for many of them?
Well, I guess the two guys that stood out to me, as I said, I probably watched 250, 300 dropbacks. I thought as the year progressed, Reed and Wicks were the guys that stood out to me. Now, Reed it may not be a number one in a strict sense. Obviously, he's more of a slot, but they used him as a motion receiver as the year progressed. He was the most targeted third down receiver, so clearly they felt that he had tremendous value there. And I thought Wicks, again, you start getting into what's a number one. There's different kinds of number ones. And there's only 4 or 5 guys in the league that are truly, in a sense, transcendent number ones. So where do other guys fit? That you start getting into that question. So Wicks is certainly not that guy. But I remember watching Wicks his next to last year in college at Virginia, because the last year the whole offense fell apart in college. And I thought Wicks was a big-time prospect based on his second to last year in college. And then obviously it didn't work the last year. But, he's a big body. Can he be the boundary X? They used Dawgs mostly in that role last year as the single receiver to the short side of the field. I don't know. Maybe Wicks might be the better guy for that as he continues to develop.
Greg, I just was listening to Cowherd with Tom Brady on, and I thought it was just fascinating talking about, you mentioned there's only 4 or 5 bona fide number one wideouts. Green Bay at this point.
All right, so that was his take on obviously the receivers, right? And Jacob, what do you think about what he said there? Is there anything any thoughts that may trigger before we dive into a ton of information about these guys. I'm going to pull up also what he's talking about Boundary X, if I can find the right screen grab here. But go ahead, man. What do you think about what he said?
No, man. I mean, it kind of coincides with what we've talked about all offseason, is that this is maybe the most slept on, obviously the most young, most talented group of wide receivers that aren't commanding any type of pay whatsoever in this league. All five, if you want to stretch it to all 6 to 7, even maybe 8 wide receivers show potential for, I don't want to say that they're an X receiver or anything like that, but they could be in any sort of situation or game time situation. We can pop guys in and out of that quote unquote X or number one, whatever you want to call it, role, and they all can do different things so diversely. It's really unbelievable. I mean, you could say that Christian Watson is more that guy that can stretch the field. You could say Dobbs more the possession receiver. You could talk about Wicks and Reed being kind of more that specialty kind of slot, kind of tweener guy. We've got, obviously, we haven't talked about the tight end room and how that lets the wide receivers be a lot more free and I guess take advantage of defenses better because of the fact that they have to accommodate for the tight ends that are just basically kind of really thick wide receivers. That being said, and this is all, we haven't talked about guys like Bo Melton, Malik Heath, Grant DeBose, people that haven't really even got a lot of time. And if they have got what limited time they have, they've shown that they grade exponentially better than most 5, 6, or 7 string wide receivers on any team in the league would be. I would argue that the Green Bay Packers have, without a doubt, the most financially fiscal / talented wide receiver core in the whole NFL by far.
Yeah. I'll tell you, man, they're definitely in the conversation if they're not, at the very top. When he said Boundary X and he talked about putting Tay Wicks potentially at Boundary X, on this philosophically and from a deployment standpoint, this makes all the sense in the world because Tay Wicks is hands down your best route runner on this roster right now. And there's some people going, what about Dobbs? Dobbs is a good route runner. I'm telling you, Tay Wicks, small sample size, but the separation that guy created was unbelievable. When we talk about Boundary X, this specific play here, this formation is called 11 gun bunch nasty X. All right. And what bunch nasty X means, when you got a nasty split, all right, you go to the short side of not necessarily the short side of the field, but with a nasty split, they're typically inside the numbers. Okay. So any receivers that are lined up inside the numbers are referred to as a nasty split. When we say bunch nasty X, and he's talked about the boundary X, right? That's what Greg Cosell said, Tay Wicks at the boundary X. Romeo Dobbs played like, I would venture to say 90, maybe 95% of the snaps when he was on the field, he lined up at the boundary X position. The boundary is the short side of the field. When you hear boundary, it's real simple. That just means the short side of the field. And when you hear field side, that means the large side of the field. What we mean by that is the ball is on the left hash. That makes this the boundary side. All right. Now, let's talk about identifying the X. When you identify the X is always on the line of scrimmage opposite the tight end. All right, if there's one tight end set. So your boundary X in this situation is Romeo Dobbs. That's the spot that he's talking about putting Tay Wicks in. And the reason being is, with this being the field side over here, there's way more ground that you've got to cover. So what you're trying to do is put someone in that X position, that boundary X, to create an isolation play to where this safety may drift away because he's got to help cover the large side of the field. Does that make sense, Jacob? That's what he's talking about with the boundary X. Now, again, Tay Wicks was our best slot receiver last year. Highest receiver rating, which is passer rating when targeted when playing the slot. He had the most yak yards as far as from a per catch standpoint. He had the most broken tackle plus missed tackle percentage. We'll talk about that in a second. But again, I just wanted to point out that's the position he's referring to right there. Normally in this situation, well, you could see if that's not him there, that's him there, right? And that Z in that slot is, I don't want to say interchangeable, but it's what they refer to as flyer when the Z is motion. Sometimes what you'll do is you'll have the Z. Again, the Z lines up on the tight end side of the field, and he's farthest away from the quarterback, okay? So if this is your Z, let's say the Z is right here right now. So forget this right here for a second. This is your Z. He's lined up there. If he motions in and ends up in the slot, well, guess what? Does that make him the slot now? In Matt LaFleur's offense, he refers to him as the F or the flyer. Okay, that's typically what that means. To the best of my knowledge, that's how it's been explained to me. All right, so again, if he's already playing a lot of slot, Tay Wicks, if you can get him to play boundary X, we already know Christian Watson can play every position on the field. I think it's hilarious, too. Christian Watson, one of the most dynamic wide receivers in the league. Greg Cosell didn't even mention him. That shows you, kind of goes to what you were saying, Jacob. They might have arguably the deepest wide receiver room in the entire league. So there you go. Any questions on that, Jacob? Anything at all, man, before I drop this down?
Nope, that makes sense to me.
All right, cool. That's what he means by Boundary X, he being Greg Cosell. And again, you can find that audio on Wildy and Tausch. If you guys aren't subbed to their show, they go live every day from I think it's 10 a.m. my time, so it would be 9 a.m. Central till 12 noon Central time. Really, really good show. I'm telling you, man, it's awesome. You guys, if you found this show, I'm sure you've watched them, but I just want to make sure that they get credit for all that. Again, it was just a phenomenal interview with Greg Cosell. So when we're talking about these two receivers being Dontavian Wicks and Jayden Reed, I went ahead and pulled the receiver rating statistic up. This is across the league, guys. So if you notice the receiver rating, which is, go from 1, 2, 3, the fourth column over from the right here. Receiver rating, you'll find Jayden Reed was 17th in the league. So passer rating when targeted, when Jordan Love targeted Jayden Reed, his passer rating was 117.9. That was 17th best in the entire NFL. Look at number 18. Greg Cosell didn't even mention tight ends. Tucker Kraft. This is including running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers across the entire National Football League. Okay, so every pass-catching possible position. Tucker Kraft was 18th, right behind Jayden Reed at a 117.4 when targeted. That's just phenomenal. If you go down to 22, there's Dontavian Wicks at 115.7. Now, we'll talk about it again here in a minute. If you look at the far right column, Jacob, you'll see broken tackle plus missed tackle per reception, and that's a percentage stat. Jayden Reed, 12.5%, right? Look at Dontavian Wicks, 28.2. He's got the highest or second highest of the however many players are on screen right there right now. What is that? 16 players, I think, maybe. Wow. Whatever it is now. He has the highest broken tackle plus missed tackle per reception percentage, which is just wild. The only one on this screen that's higher than him is Deebo Samuel. Ever heard of him? It's just wild. Yeah, there you go. M. Smitty in the chat. Wicks ahead of St. Brown with the eye emoji. Telling you, man, I see Wicks as the future number one receiver on this team. And people go, what do you mean by number one receiver? Thank you for asking that question because it's so important. When I say a number one receiver in my eyes, they have to be able to tilt the field. They have to be able to draw coverage. What you're seeing in Tay Wicks early on with the separation and everything is the guy is the closest thing we've seen to Tay Adams since Tay Adams left. Romeo Doubs is a very good wide receiver, in my opinion. I think Christian Watson is one of the most dynamic in the entire league. Dontavian Wicks and his route running ability, strong hands. He's a physical receiver. He's a bigger body receiver like Greg Cosell was talking about. I'm telling you, man, sky's the freaking limit. Here's what's well, first of all, those stats there, Jacob, anything you want to add there, man? Anything stick out to you? Anything I might have missed there, bro?
I mean, we've kind of highlighted a lot of this stuff, but one thing that I keep getting shocked on, which now we've seen it on multiple different sites, is that the Tucker Kraft drop percentage is 0.0. The guy, I mean, we make fun of, I shouldn't say make fun, we make jokes about how he's, lung dart captain, Tuck Norris. The guy doesn't drop balls. I mean, he just, I got a joke, but I'm not going to say it. He just doesn't seem to drop anything. I mean, it's just sure-handed as can be, and I hope that sticks into next season. But that is one thing that, for a younger quarterback or a new quarterback, his best friend is going to be a tight end. And if your best friend tight end does not, I mean, he's got Velcro hands. He's got that tar from back in the 80s and 90s. That's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Smitty in the chat said, looks like Wicks also has the highest first down percentage of all those on the screen as well. It's very true.
Wow, great.
Yeah. That's wild. Now, what's the negative when it comes to Wicks? It's the hands. His drop percentage was 8.5%. Now, Tyreek Hill's was 8.6%. So, you can't look at that and go, oh, God, he's doomed. No. I think Tyreek Hill is the best wide receiver in the NFL. If his drop percentage is there, it's like, okay, maybe, that's not so bad. But on screen here, outside of Cortland Sutton, it is kind of toward the top there. Even with the drops, though, the fact that, like Smitty said, the highest first down percentage just shows you how good he is with Yak, man. It's just absolutely wild, man.
Yeah.
So Chris Nichols in the chat said, love you guys for more shows. Appreciate you, Chris. Always good to have you in here, man. All right, so there's that. Now let's move on to the cap situation. All right, this is really cool. So when you look at the Packers salary cap hits for 2024, Jayden Reed, right, the first receiver that Greg Cosell talked about, $1.6 million against the cap, Jacob. I'm trying not to laugh because it's just wild, man. And then you got to go all the way down to the bottom. Dontavian Wicks, $990,000 against the cap this year. And I didn't even think to look for Tucker Kraft. Is he on screen? He is. $1.2 million. That's just wild, man. I'm telling you, I see Dontavian Wicks as the number one receiver, and I see Tucker Kraft as the number one tight end. I don't think they're going to get the number one reps, but that's how I see them there. I thought that was a really cool statistic there as far as their cap hit. Now, if you go to highest paid wide receivers in the league this year, Jacob, check this out. Jayden Reed is the 102nd highest paid wide receiver in terms of cap hit for 2024 at $1.6 million. There's 101 other receivers that are getting paid more than Jayden Reed. And what's so cool about that is, yes, last year was his rookie year. You got 3 more years left on that deal. I mean, $1.6 million cap hit in 24 this year, $1.9 million in 25. 2.2 in 2026. Then he becomes an unrestricted free agent. Just wild, man. The value that you're getting with Jayden Reed here is just crazy.
Can you bring up that list of the Packers again? Of their breakdown? Because I mean, this, like you just highlighted, Jayden Reed there, but look right below him, Edgerrin Cooper, AJ Dillon. That was one right there that should pop off the screen, which obviously it isn't purple there, literally. Bullard Dobbs though there at 1.1. What is that? 1.1 basically $1 million. I mean, you got Eric Wilson, Dillard, who we picked up off there, Zach Tom, Wooden's in that mix. I mean, even guys, if you go down there, Lloyd, Hopper, Walker, Torrey, Clifford, Evan Williams, Dontavian Wicks. So you look at the importance of being able to draft. If your organization has only made its kind of come up through only signing free agents, you're not going to consistently be able to put out a good team. The way to do it is what the Packers, I think, have kind of solidified as the way is we draft exponentially better than any other team. I would argue, well, I should say at least top 5 than any other team. We develop better than any other team, especially in the quarterback position. We never are happy with the bottom of the roster. We're constantly churning that bottom of the roster. But you talked about it, like we are in a luxury position, specifically in the wide receiver room, the tight end room, the running back room now, and on the offensive line, because of the fact that we've drafted so well in those positions that even like we talked about, worst case scenario, if Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs come out and they, for whatever reason, let's say both of them ball out this year, like both of them have 1,000-yard seasons, 10, 15 touchdown receptions, just look crazy. They go out, test the market. They say, hey, we want to get paid 25 to 30 million plus per year. We say, all right, guys, thank you for your service. You can leave your jersey there at the door. We got 5 or 6 other guys that are champing at the bit to get on to this team and be a solidified wide receiver. Like that is insane. You can only do that if you are very, very good at drafting. Most teams, I'd argue, maybe would be happy with 2 or 3 studs or picks or even starters out of most of their draft class. Goody is now starting to develop that he gets 5 to 6 to 7 starters each draft, which is insane.
That's pretty wild, man. Smitty in the chat said, amazing to think we have this core group at the low cap hits for at least 2 more years. Angus McHaggis, a.k.a. Prince in the chat says, when you have pretty much written off Samori Toure as even having a shot at your 53, you have a deep, talented group. No doubt about it, man. They'll be looking to stash him on the practice squad, I would imagine. That's not to mention the Bo Meltons, the Malik Heaths, all those guys, right? Yeah, pretty cool. So with that being said now, let's look at this stat here we showed last night. We'll just briefly hit on it again. Let's talk about Dontavian Wicks and what he does well, right? We talked about the separation. Smitty sent this over last night. Appreciate him pulling this off the internet and tagging me. So Dontavian Wicks obviously showing you right here just how good he is at separation, graded on all routes, minimum 100 slot routes. So from the slot, there was only 4 receivers that got more separation on all routes with a minimum of 100 slot routes, so playing out of the slot. And then, of course, if you go vertically here on this chart, slot catch point and yak grade, Dontavian Wicks is he's second best at yak grade out of the slot.
Yep.
So
that's crazy.
Absolutely phenomenal. Now, broken tackles, we briefly mentioned it. On the far right there, if you look, that's broken tackle plus missed tackle per reception, broken down from a percentage standpoint. This is across the entire NFL. I included running backs to prove a point here too, because I think we would all agree running backs should be better at breaking tackles than wide receivers, right? That's kind of what they get paid to do out of the backfield. So when they catch the ball, you think they'd be dynamic too. Look at Dontavian Wicks, including running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends across the entire NFL. Dontavian Wicks is 13th best at 28.2% broken tackle plus missed tackle per reception. Now, some people would say, all right, go back to Greg Cosell's comment about him potentially playing boundary X. Are we sure we want to do that because you want broken tackles out of that slot position? Imagine if you've got Christian Watson in the Z or the flyer, or even you go speed to 3 and throw him at slot, and they have to roll the coverage to that side, and you get a true isolation play with a Dontavian Wicks in the boundary X. Imagine there's only one defender out there on an island that's got to tackle him. And if his missed tackle percentage per reception is 13th best in the league, including running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers at 28.2%, you're literally one missed tackle away from a home run on that side of the field. So I love him in the slot, but I'll tell you, man, if someone else can step into the slot as well, and you keep Jayden Reed in the Z/flyer along with Christian Watson, and you can play Romeo Doubs in the slot as well. Nobody's got stronger hands than Romeo Doubs, right? Yeah, I can see a scenario where you might put him at boundary X. Those are the things we're going to be watching for in camp this year. Go ahead, Jake.
Oh, no, I mean, I just that is really an incredible stat, because you look at the guys that he's lumped in there. He's not far off the top. I mean, obviously, there's some certain statistics where he's a little bit lacking, and again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but this is a guy that up until basically the year he got drafted, he still wanted to play basketball. He did not, he admitted that he did not really give 100% into the football career. He was more kind of half in, half out. And so now the fact that this dude realizes, hey, I'm pretty good at this football thing.
This thing's easy.
I got a quarterback that's, it's carving out the path of his Hall of Fame career already because of how talented he is. Like you talked about, his route running skills are, other than Tay Adams and maybe a couple other guys, he looks like he has it absolutely figured out in that aspect. So I think the sky is actually the limit with him. And the fact is that, like we talked about, is it a positive to have an X, or is it a benefit not to have an X? Because of the fact that at any given week when you line up, you're like, all right, well, are we going to shadow coverage to this side, to this guy, to that side? What about Christian Watson speed? Well, what about Jayden Reed on the end arounds? What about Dontavian Wicks in the slot? Like, there's too many puzzle pieces to take account for, to the point where it's, to me, every time, not to hate on Tay Adams whatsoever, I will thank that man for everything he ever did for the organization. But on any given game, when we walked in there, he might as well be wearing a bright highlighter yellow jersey that says, hey, I'm the number one, I'm the X, I'm who you got to watch for. And we still made it work with that type of situation. So now where each one of those guys could be that quote unquote highlighted player, I think that's pretty cool, to be honest.
Yeah. And we haven't even taken into consideration, we'll talk about this tonight on PTA Live at 7 Central, the Josh Jacobs edition. If you get Dontavian Wicks, Christian Watson, and Jayden Reed drawing some extra coverage, some extra eyeballs, at a boundary X position, whether you decide to go that route with Tay Wicks, you keep Romeo there, or you go Christian Watson to stretch the field. You understand how a lot of a box that gives our boy Josh Jacobs. I mean, he's poised to have a season similar to what he did in 2022, with just the fact that they can, Green Bay isn't the best run blocking offensive line in the league. I would argue and say that they're bottom 10. That's me personally, just based off of the film I've seen and kind of what I take away from it. And also looking at the analytics as far as blown block percentage in the running game. They're a great pass blocking team. Don't get me wrong, pass blocking offensive line. But the fact that you're going to draw so much attention to this wide array of weapons that you have in the wide receiver room, it's going to open up light boxes. And you're going to get a hat on a hat in that running game. And not to mention, Josh Jacobs is excellent at catching the football out of the backfield. So going to be really interesting to see that. So when we look at Tay Wicks' contract here, Jacob, look at these cap hits, man. 2024, $990,000. 2025, $1.1 million. 2026, $1.2 million. This is why it's going to make it really hard to throw the checkbook at Christian Watson and or Romeo Doubs, because you're looking behind them going, Reed at, what was he? 102nd highest paid this year. He's at 1.6. I think next year he jumps to $2 million. And then you got Tay Wicks at his $990,000. He's the 188th highest paid wide receiver. That is just
Can you I don't know if you have this available. Can you look at where Bo Melton or Heath ranks on that list or no?
They're the veteran minimum, so they would be right around this range too, a little less, I'm sure. Okay. They might not even be in the top 51 if they fall out, so they might not even count towards the cap, as silly as that sounds. But I don't have Spot Track pulled up. These are all screen grabs that I grabbed earlier. So I couldn't tell you exactly. I could probably look it up. If you want to give me your parting thoughts here, I'll go ahead and look that up, Jacob, just based off of everything we said. Let me find. You said Bo Melton and Malik Heath, right?
Yeah, just because it'd be interesting, or Torrey for that matter. I mean, just because.
Now, Torrey was on that list. Let me see here real quick. Where's it at? No, that ain't it. Here we go. Yeah, you'll see Torrey is actually a little higher. Samori Torrey. You see Romeo Doubs at 1.1. He's actually less than our boy Jayden Reed. Samori Torrey, I thought there he is toward the bottom. 1 million flat. $1,004,252. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, I that is insane that we haven't talked about the potential that, like, here with Ron's talking about Josh Jacobs said he faced the second most loaded box only behind Henry. That's going to change. Yeah, dude. I mean, that to me, a lot of people were, and that was, I believe, if you're talking about Ron, the year that he kind of fell off after being the number one running back as far as yards goes. And that makes sense that, teams would kind of shut down that aspect of him. But like Ron's saying here, you can't cover everything at once. And now we have so many, if you're going to cover our wide receivers, okay, fine. Then you're going to have to worry about the running backs and the tight ends. If you're going to cover the tight ends, then you have to worry about the wide receivers and so on and so on. I think the biggest thing is that going into this year, which we haven't talked about a lot, is that I'm not worried about the skill positions whatsoever, wide receiver, tight end, running back. If the offensive line gives Jordan Love the amount of time to get into his progressions, to get into his drops, to get into his reads, I don't see any defense being able to hang with us. I think a lot of the thing that we may be looking past is the fact that the offensive line, I feel like we're just kind of not worrying about it as if it's solidified for whatever reason. And I think that might be more of an oversight, because we go on here and we talked about it multiple times, even on the defense, on the offense. We're like, we got this new guy, we got this new dude. But if it's kind of the same. If the defensive line doesn't hold up, the defensive strategy in the backfield and in the secondary kind of falls apart. With the offense, it's the same way. If the offensive line doesn't give Jordan Love the protection and the running gaps that Jacobs and him and the running back group needs, this could all be for nothing. Like we have a lot of, like I said, so many great skill positions, but if we don't have the fundamentals, if we're not winning in the trenches, it's not going to matter. So I hope we're not looking past that. That's my biggest takeaway, is for all the little, we seem to have a lot of really shiny glitz and glamour parts, but it's like, if we don't have that ugly, the fuglies, the hog mollies, the fatties down there in the middle in the trenches, battling it out.
Get out of my. I love it. Only thing that was missing there was Hot Tui. That's the only thing that was missing.
I was trying to figure out a way to get it in.
Yeah. So, you asked about Malik Heath. Now, again, I don't know why this is crossed out. It gets a little tricky when you get on the bottom side of the roster. They're showing 918,000 with a cross through it, and then just showing the number 3,000. Now,
$3,000.
if you look at Bo Melton, though, Bo Melton does not fit into the top 51. So he will not be again, that's the minimum we were talking about, right? He wouldn't even count against the cap because you only take the top 51 that count against the cap. So Bo Melton, really exciting player, man. This year, if he takes a step, holy cow, I'm telling you, I know these receivers root for each other and everything, and rightfully so, they should. But if he takes a step, Jacob, the writing might be on the wall for Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs, unless you want to just go, you know what, let's pay both those guys, and we've got hands down the deepest, best wide receiver core. Everyone got better over the next 2 years, going in advance here. But I would look up, and like I said, man, we've said it 1,000 times. I'm tired of saying it. I would go and be like, all right, look, here's the deal, guys. Got 2 years left on your deal. Let's get you some guaranteed money right now. I'd offer them each 4-year, $40 million, $30 million fully guaranteed. Not practical guaranteed, but fully guaranteed. That would reduce any risk on injury. Now, could they get more than on the market? Absolutely, they could. And it's going to come down to does one of those two guys or maybe both want to stay in Green Bay, and you're going to them early and doing it in a respectful manner. But Jayden Reed, Tay Wicks, Bo Melton, Malik Heath, I'd be perfectly fine with those receivers. It's crazy as we're talking about Christian Watson. This isn't to dog him. We know how dynamic he is, but he hasn't even hardly been on the field. And Jordan still was able to do what he did. Imagine if he is healthy this year, man. God almighty. If they got that hammy straightened out with the whole, percentage of balance, weight, whatever it was, distribution on it that was causing the problem, man, sky's the limit for this offense. They were a legit top 10 offense last year. And one other thing I'll say, and we'll hit on some of this later tonight. The other thing, Packers finished 12th in scoring in 2023 on defense. I think Hafley, a little bit of pressure on Half, because you've got to break into the top 10. If that defense somehow, some way takes a step back from 12th best scoring defense last year, I'm telling you, it's going to get loud quick. They're going to give him 1 year. I just hope what I'm concerned about, and Ryan did a great job on his pod breaking this down, how it's just this carousel of defensive coordinators. What worries me a lot is what if the defense takes a slight step back, and we finish 15th in scoring? Is it going to get loud? Because the last thing I want is here, you've got a defense that was finally borderline top 10 in scoring, and we kind of ran the DC off, like we did Pet and like we did Dom Capers, all of them. I'm going to be so angry if this defense somehow, some way takes a step back and then we run another DC off, man.
Yeah, what's funny too is that I listened to that same podcast, and it was just kind of incredible. It seemed like no matter if the defensive coordinator was good or bad, it's like at most you got about 3 or 4 years, and then most of them get kind of hawk tuied in the first or second year, and they don't even get enough real time to really implement their players, to even have any of their drafted players get kind of that second or third year progression. So I think defensive coordinator is more difficult as a job than I have maybe given it credit up until this point. I mean, like you talked about, all eyes, especially if you're in some of those markets like LA, New York, Chicago, where all they do is pepper you just with nonsense. And I like Hafley. I hope that he turns it around. I hope he has thick skin too, because the national media, I think more than the local media, will start calling for heads pretty quick.
Really quick, yeah. Ron Sample says turnovers will be what could make the big difference. Completely agree. We had 7 dropped interceptions last year as a defense. So, if you can increase the turnover, but this is where, and I'm not saying you're saying this, Ron, I'm saying just in general, when I have conversations with people, they go, oh, well, what about DVOA? What about this? I could give a rat's ass on any other statistic other than how many points are we giving up per game. I'm not telling anyone else how to fan, but me as a Packer fan, my goal on defense, I want to give up the least amount of points. And when people argue that whole point with me, And again, I know Ron's not doing. I'm just saying, generally speaking, I always say, so you're telling me you would rather have a better DVOA and give up more points than vice versa? I'm sorry, man. I am too drunk to taste that chicken. There is no scenario whatsoever in the game of football where I'm watching a game and going, I don't care if they score points. I just want less rushing yards. What the hell are you talking about? That blows my mind that some fans kind of look at it that way. But again, the measurement, the metric that we're looking at, the comparison for Hafley this year, I'm pretty sure we finished 12th. We'll look that up and double check it. I'll make a note right now and we'll cover that on PTA tonight because I want to know exactly where we finished. The last I checked, it was 12th in scoring. So I put, where did we finish on scoring? Anything else you got, Jacob?
No. This is pretty good for an impromptu afternoon podcast. That was a lot of information we covered. It does, again, like every time it feels like we're beating a dead horse, but we are so deep at that wide receiver position and so blessed at the tight end to have two young guys and maybe even three with Ben Sims kind of, being that kind of steady Eddie, more not really getting a lot of the highlights or the acolytes of being a tight end, but more doing the kind of grunty dirt work, seal blocks and sift blocks and all that kind of stuff. But it'd be nice, I think, maybe to look at look into the quarterback position, kind of like we did with the wide receivers, as to guys that are coming up on quote unquote contracts. There's not a lot of them, but that's what's weird about the defense is it seems so young. Other than the defensive line, and I don't know. I'm really excited. I do think that we got a little bit of the offseason Homer vibes going through us, but when I think about this logistically and on paper, this team should be good, man. It should be really good.
Yeah.
So,
and the thing too, though, the league is very cyclical. It's a copycat league as well.
Yeah.
You've got all these defenses, all these defensive coaches have been looking at the tape all offseason. I guarantee you, week 1, Philadelphia Eagles, we are not going to surprise them with anything. They're going to know exactly what we ran last year and vice versa. It's going to be, okay, who makes the adjustments that much more smoother, I should say, and who makes the big plays, who wins the ball, as Coach LaFleur says, which is turnover differential, who controls the middle 8. Those are the two key statistics, and it all comes down to the preparation. Now you've got your players with one more year under their belt. It's going to be absolutely huge, man. It is. Ron Sample said, not saying that for sure. I know you wasn't, buddy. I just wanted to mention that because, again, you'd be surprised at how many fans actually scoff at points per they scoff at points per game, and okay, well, let's go points per play. That's the true measurement, right? That isn't even good enough. It's now you got to look at DVOA. Get away from me, man. Oh, trust me. I'm not saying DVOA is important either. I'm simply saying you got to choose between one of those two stats. Your team can be better in one or the other. Which are you choosing? That's what I thought.
No.
I hope you're saying you'd rather give up less points. Angus in the chat says, if we do have improvement on D, how long will until Hafley's phone starts ringing with other opportunities? His tenure could be short on both ends of the spectrum. It's a very good point, man. If he comes out and we go from 12th to top 5, phone's going to start ringing. Unless we have the top defense, hands down, number 1 defense in the league, I think he would be safe for at least 2 years. But you never know, man. He is a bright young mind. There's no doubt about that. So got a great reputation across the league. Man, you guys were awesome in the chat. This was a lot of fun. Like Jacob said, just a little impromptu. I was in the pool and listening to podcasts. I'm like, man, I'm going to talk about this. Let's go put a show together. I messaged Jacob. Just so happens he was available. So here we go. Yeah, I'm with you, Smitty. Smitty says less points scored against. How's it even a debate? I'm going to leave it there because it blew my mind last year. I was like, I feel like I'm living in an alternate universe right now. But anyway, Jacob, appreciate your time, man. This was fun. We'll be back, like I said, here this evening, 7 p.m. Central Time for another PTA Live. We got a couple other clips we're going to hit on. And again, we've got some cool stuff kind of triggered up here. I've got it in the system now where we can quickly grab those screen grabs of Packer formations and be able to do a quick little chalk talk illustration type thing. If you hear us mention a concept, we can literally throw an image up, draw on the screen, and show you exactly what we're talking about. So we'll have that, sure. in store as well. So we'll see you guys tonight. For those of you listening on the pod, thank you for making us a part of your day. As always, let's go out and be the change we want to see in the world, and go Pack Go.
The power sweep. Actually, it's the lead play in our offense. We ask our YN or a tight end to open up somewhere between 6 feet and 9 feet. Get an isolation with the linebacker. Tell the tackle to take the defensive end if he's over him. If he's not, to drive down on the first man to his inside. If the YN has the linebacker taken out, he cuts inside. If the YN has the linebacker in, he comes all the way around. If you look at this play, what we're trying to get is a seal here and a seal here, and try to run this play in the alley.